Listen, my child, listen and become wise. Now that's from Proverbs, and our sons and daughters often seem to have other ideas. But you know, they absorb much more of the good stuff than they like to admit, because none of us can make it without leaning on the accumulated wisdom of our forebears. By wisdom, I mean something much more than mere cleverness or factual knowledge. Wisdom in Proverbs means the ability to deal effectively with life and to know where one's true strength lies. Wisdom traditions flourished throughout the ancient East, Canaanite, Babylonian, Egyptian, and Israelite, preserved by a special class of wise men known as sages. They collected, they collated, they copied the cumulative wisdom of their people. The sages were given much respect, and kings as well as commoners turned to them for guidance. Probably the greatest single such collection anywhere is in the book of Proverbs. Raymond Van Leeuwen helps us to understand the themes running through this book.
Every human needs wisdom for living, and every healthy society hands its wisdom on to the next generation. Israel's wisdom books are Proverbs, Job, and Ecclesiastes. Here Israel used poetic sayings, admonitions, and speeches to wrestle with life's basic problems. Many of Israel's wise insights had parallels in ancient Egypt and Mesopotamia, and some sayings were borrowed from Israel's neighbors. This shared wisdom is not surprising, because all humans live in God's creation and struggle with the same issues. Israel's wisdom differed in that Israel believed in one God, Yahweh, who had made and governs all things by his wisdom. In Israel, wisdom included four things. First, the fear of the Lord. Second, insight into one's basic life patterns. Third, the ability to apply that insight in one's own situation. And fourth, the ability to act on one's insight. For example, God calls humans to work, but each human needs to know who she is and what her proper work is. And then she actually has to do the work. Proverbs is the premier wisdom book of the Bible. It was written to help young folk develop an active life that is godly and savvy about the real world. Proverbs also helps the wise grow wiser. Proverbs 1:7 is a guide to the meaning of the entire book. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and discipline. In Proverbs, the fear of the Lord is shorthand for all of life lived in devotion to God, in worship, business, politics, at breakfast, and even in bed. Fearing the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, because without God, we do not see the true meaning of things, how all of life relates to God, or how things fit together for God's glory. Knowing God helps us to see things as they are and as they ought to be. The wise know the right time and place for action, and they do things the right way. They hit the nail on the head, and if the shoe fits, they wear it. Wise folk pay attention to God, but they also pay attention to what's in front of them. The discerning person looks to wisdom, but the eyes of a fool to the ends of the earth. The wise know that all of life belongs to God. The second half of Proverbs 1:7 shows not everyone is wise or godly. Some people are fools. They don't like the hard work and discipline that reality requires. So Proverbs divides people into wise and foolish, righteous and wicked. Of course, no one is perfectly wise or perfectly evil. Most of us are a mixture. But Proverbs insists that life is a journey, and we are all headed toward wisdom or folly, toward good or evil. A wise life is a journey with and toward God and wisdom. To want wisdom without God is like wanting life without air. Proverbs 1 through 9, then, pictures life as a journey of two ways, the way of folly, the way of wisdom. These chapters are written as a kind of ethical testament given by parents to a young man on the verge of adult responsibility. The father or mother speaks to my son, though NRSV translates my child, and warns about the temptation of evil men and the strange woman. The strange woman is someone other than the young man's wife. She may be attractive, but she is sexually out of bounds, like the tree in the Garden of Eden was off limits for Adam and Eve. In Proverbs 1 through 9, the strange woman becomes a metaphor for folly, and the wife becomes a metaphor for wisdom. This imagery is directed at young men full of hormones, but it can also speak to women willing to see life from the perspective of those who need to restrict desires to the good things that are properly theirs to enjoy. Proverbs 9 combines imagery of opposite ways, women, and houses at the end of the road, the house of wisdom and the house of folly. To enter wisdom's house means life in God's good creation. To enter folly's house means death, because God's limits for life have been transgressed. The young man in folly's house dies like a fish out of water. As you reread Proverbs 1 through 9, consider those places where the imagery of ways, women, and houses come together. Proverbs 8 is a speech by wisdom herself, personified as a woman who addresses humans in the midst of life. Wisdom here presents her resume. She tells humans what she has to offer them, because they need real goodness and not the phony good of folly. In 8:22 through 31, wisdom justifies her extraordinary claims. She was with God at the beginning of creation and present as he put the world into its proper shape. Christians have used Proverbs 8 as a means for understanding Jesus Christ, the Word and wisdom of God, by whom the world was created and in whom all things hold together. In Proverbs 10 through 15, we find a different kind of writing, a collection of two-line sayings about opposites. The sayings contrast the righteous and the wicked, the good and the bad. Here, people reap what they sow, and actions have consequences. Good behavior produces good, but bad deeds do damage. These basic rules of life are the ABCs of wisdom. Treasures gained by wickedness do not profit, but righteousness delivers from death. A slack hand causes poverty, but the hand of the diligent makes rich. Only when we get to later chapters do the exceptions to the rules, God's freedom, and the limitations of human wisdom get more clearly spelled out. No wisdom, no understanding, no counsel can avail against the Lord. The horse is made ready for the day of battle, but the victory belongs to the Lord. Because victory belongs to the Lord, it's important to remember that no one proverb says it all. Proverbs can contradict one another because they apply to different situations. For example, do not answer fools according to their folly, or you will be a fool yourself. Answer fools according to their folly, or they will be wise in their own eyes. Or these two sayings, a friend loves at all times, and kinsfolk are born to share adversity. It is senseless to give a pledge, to become surety for a neighbor. Here the words friend and neighbor are the same word in Hebrew. Proverbs are not universal laws like the law of gravity. Usually, it's true that hard work leads to success, but it is also true that sometimes failure comes to the good and the godly, as Job and Ecclesiastes show. A wise person knows which proverb fits in each case. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in a setting of silver.